Everyone thought she was just another exhausted mother moving through the city with grocery bags cutting into her fingers, a woman whose life revolved around school timings, unpaid bills, and late-night worries. Neighbors nodded politely. Strangers never looked twice. That was exactly why no one noticed when she started watching more closely, listening more carefully, memorizing faces instead of forgetting them. Her name didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what they had taken from her and what she was about to take back. It began with a sound she would never forget. Not a scream, not a gunshot, but the phone ringing far too late at night. When she answered, the voice on the other end was calm, almost bored, delivering news that shattered the fragile structure of her world. By the time the call ended, she was standing in her kitchen staring at a wall, unable to remember how long she had been there. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was already moving, already trying to make sense of something that made no sense at all. They told her it was an accident, a robbery gone wrong. Wrong place, wrong time. That was the story they wanted her to accept, the one everyone else accepted easily because it allowed them to move on. But mothers don't move on that way. Mothers replay moments. They hear silences between words. They notice details others dismiss. And she noticed that the story never stayed the same twice. One officer said there were 2 attackers. Another mentioned 3. A report used a word she couldn't ignore, professional. That single word lodged itself in her mind like a splinter. Professionals didn't make mistakes. Professionals didn't panic. Professionals didn't leave things to chance. And professionals didn't target random people without a reason. At first, she tried to grieve like everyone expected her to. She attended the funeral, accepted condolences, hugged relatives she barely recognized through her tears. But grief, for her, was not quiet or passive. It was sharp. It kept her awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, searching her memory for anything she had missed. Slowly, grief transformed into something colder, something steadier. She began by asking questions that sounded harmless. Who was there that night? Who arrived first? Who left early? People answered without thinking, assuming she was just another broken woman looking for closure. They underestimated how much a mother can remember when she's no longer afraid of the truth. Her days developed a new rhythm. Mornings were for routine, for keeping life looking normal. Afternoons were for listening, for following trails that led nowhere, for learning how the city really worked beneath its surface. Nights were for research, old news articles, court records, names that appeared again and again in stories that never quite added up. That was when she found the first name. It appeared in a case from years earlier, buried in a local paper, mentioned only once and never again. The man had been questioned in connection with a killing that was never solved. No charges, no follow-up. But the method described matched too closely to ignore. She wrote the name down and stared at it for a long time, as if it might confess under pressure. She didn't confront him, not yet. She learned instead, learned where he drank, where he worked, who he avoided. She learned the habits that professionals develop because they think they are invisible. She learned that he wasn't alone. The second name came from a different city. The third from a conversation she overheard, while pretending not to listen. Each name felt heavier than the last, not because of fear, but because of certainty. This wasn't one person. This was a network, and somehow, for reasons still unclear, her family had crossed its path. There were moments when doubt crept in. Moments when exhaustion whispered that she should stop, that this was too big, too dangerous, too impossible. But doubt never lasted long. All she had to do was remember the silence that followed that late-night phone call. Silence has a way of hardening resolve. She trained herself quietly, not in gyms or firing ranges, but in observation and patience. She learned how to blend into crowds, how to wait without being noticed, how to ask questions that sounded like small talk but revealed everything. People talk more than they realize, especially when they think they're in control. The fourth and fifth names came faster after that. Patterns emerged, certain locations, certain methods, a shared contact who never appeared in official records. This wasn't random violence. This was business. When she finally confronted the first man, it wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no threats. Just a conversation in a place where he felt safe. She didn't accuse him. She didn't need to. She spoke instead about consequences, about how people who believe they are untouchable often forget the smallest variables. Like a mother with nothing left to lose. He laughed at first. Then he stopped. What she said to him was never recorded. What mattered was the look on his face when she stood up to leave. Fear doesn't always come from weapons. Sometimes it comes from realizing that someone sees you clearly for the first time. After that, things accelerated. One mistake led to another. Someone talked when they shouldn't have. Someone panicked. Someone tried to disappear too quickly. Each move confirmed what she already knew. There were 10 of them, 10 people involved, directly or indirectly, in the decision that destroyed her life. She didn't hunt them the way movies show. There were no car chases or explosions. Her hunt was quiet, methodical, relentless. She applied pressure where it couldn't be seen. She exposed secrets selectively, letting paranoia do the work for her. People turned on each other. Alibis collapsed. Stories changed. Authorities began reopening old cases, not because of her, but because the system finally had enough loose threads to pull. She stayed in the background, just another name on a witness list, just another grieving relative who never caused trouble. By the time the 7th name surfaced publicly, the story had changed completely. No longer a tragic accident. No longer a random crime. Reporters used words like conspiracy, contract, organized. People expressed shock as if the truth had come from nowhere. She watched the news in silence, feeling no triumph. This wasn't about victory. It was about balance. The 8th and 9th names fell not to courts but to exposure. Lives built on secrecy collapsed quickly in the light. Businesses failed. Alliances broke. People vanished into obscurity, knowing that staying visible was more dangerous than disappearing. The 10th name was the hardest. He was careful, smarter than the others. He didn't talk, didn't threaten, didn't run. He believed, perhaps, that time would protect him, that eventually she would grow tired or distracted or broken enough to stop. He was wrong. The final evidence didn't come from force or fear, but from patience. A single overlooked detail, something insignificant to everyone else, something only a mother trained by loss would notice. It connected everything. Dates, payments, decisions. When it was over, there was no celebration. No moment where she felt whole again. Justice doesn't restore what was taken. It only prevents the lie from surviving. People later asked how she did it. How a mother alone, with no power or protection, could dismantle something so dangerous. She never answered, because the answer was simple and terrifying. She didn't hunt them because she was strong. She hunted them because she refused to forget. And that, more than anything, made her unstoppable.